There's a version of Italy that exists in our imaginations before we ever get here. And then there's the version we actually live. For me, one of the most defining chapters of my Italian life, perhaps the most defining, wasn't actually the easiest one. It wasn't the one where everything went smoothly. It was actually the one that challenged me, stretched me, and ultimately sent me back to where I'd started with a completely different perspective. I'm talking about the 2.5 years I spent living in Palermo. Palermo is extraordinary. I want to be clear about that from the beginning because what I'm about to share isn't a criticism of the city. Palermo for me is one of Italy's defining treasures for all its beauty and complications. And I don't think I truly understood that until we left. But before I get into all of that, let me take you back to where the story really begins. When I first moved to Italy, I settled in Salerno, a beautiful little city close to the Amalfi Coast that, if I'm honest, genuinely feels like home to me. I spent 4 years there, and it's where I navigated the learning curve of Italian life. I found my feet and even coped with a global pandemic from within its streets. But after 4 years, something shifted. I'd found my rhythm and I'd built my comfort zone. And comfort zones, as much as we love them, have a way of quietly becoming cages. I started to feel like I'd experienced everything that particular chapter had to offer. The challenges that had once pushed me to grow had become familiar. The city that had once felt like an adventure had started to feel like a routine. And I think that feeling, that low hum of restlessness, is something a lot of us who live here will recognise at some point. I needed contrast and friction. Ultimately, I needed somewhere new. So in July 2022, my boyfriend and I packed up our lives and moved to Palermo. It made sense on paper. Palermo is where my boyfriend is from, where his family lives, where his friends are, and where he grew up. There's something genuinely different about living somewhere with those kinds of roots already in place. Because when you move to a city in Italy as a foreigner and you have nobody, although you can build a life there, I've done it. When you have family down the road, people who have known you your whole life, it's a different feeling entirely, a different kind of belonging. We arrived in Palermo full of energy and optimism. My boyfriend had a job lined up. I was ready for a new chapter. The city was electric, loud and alive in a way that was unlike anything I'd experienced in Italy before. And then, as life tends to do, things unravelled a little. The job my boyfriend had moved there for didn't turn out to be what we'd been led to believe. And after that, what followed was a prolonged stretch of instability, a cycle of uncertainty and of trying to find something permanent in an industry that in Sicily particularly isn't very well represented. And I want to be honest about that because I think we don't talk about this enough. Italy is beautiful, it really is, but beauty does not pay the bills. And when every single month becomes a quiet anxiety about whether you can cover your rent, your shopping, the basic costs of life, the beauty starts to recede. It doesn't disappear entirely, but it moves to the background. It gets drowned out. For me though, Palermo actually gave me something I hadn't had before. For the first time since moving to Italy, I found genuine professional stability there. A real contract and work with a consistent income, something I could build on, and I'll always be grateful for that. But for my boyfriend, living in the city he grew up in, surrounded by his people, it was the opposite experience. The romantic image of coming home, of building a life in the place that shaped him, came up against the reality of what that city could actually offer him professionally. And slowly the weight of that started to press down on both of us. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from living somewhere that isn't quite working. Every day starts with a slight heaviness. Palermo was giving us so much, the food, the warmth, the culture, the extraordinary beauty of that city, but it was also asking a great deal of us in return. And at some point the balance tipped. We knew it was time to go. I'll be honest, leaving wasn't easy. We had invested a lot, both emotionally and financially. Moving from the mainland to an island is expensive at the best of times, and we had done it in full faith with real hope that this was the best thing to do. To turn around 2.5 years later and say, this isn't it, felt in some moments like admitting defeat. But here's what I've come to understand since. It wasn't defeat. It was honesty. It was paying attention to what our lives were telling us. Recently, almost a year after we left, we went back to Palermo for the first time properly. It wasn't a flying visit as it had been a few months prior. This time we actually walked around the historical centre and went to the places we used to go to. And something remarkable happened. We fell in love with it again. Not in a way that made us question our decision to leave, quite the opposite. We could finally see it clearly. The beauty we had once been too stressed to notice was suddenly right in front of us, vivid, overwhelming almost. And that, I think, was the moment of recognition. We had been right to go, not because Palermo had let us down, but because staying in circumstances that weren't working would have slowly hollowed out our love for a place that genuinely deserves to be loved. I want to talk about something that I think holds a lot of us back when we reach these crossroads. We get attached to the idea of permanence. We move to Italy or we move within Italy and we decide, consciously or not, that this is the place, the forever home, the destination. And when it starts to feel wrong, we resist that feeling because changing course feels like failure, like we got it wrong and that we wasted all that money and experienced all that upheaval for nothing. But what if we thought about it differently? What if we thought about our life in Italy not as a single fixed destination, but as a series of chapters? Some chapters are long, some are short, some are joyful from start to finish, and others challenge you in ways you never expected. But all of them have something to teach you. My time in Palermo gave me contrast that I didn't have before. It gave me professional experience that shaped me. It gave my boyfriend the clarity to realise that the city of his childhood, as much as he loves it, is no longer the city that can hold his future. That's not a small thing. That's enormously valuable. And we couldn't have gotten any of that by staying safe. When we returned back to the province of Salerno, a place that felt like home, something settled in me that I hadn't realised had been unsettled. I had always liked it here, but now I actually understood why. Because now I had something to compare it against. And that's what contrast does. It doesn't just show you what you were missing, it shows you what you had all along and perhaps hadn't fully appreciated. So if you're watching this and you're in that place, that feeling of restlessness, of low-level dissatisfaction, of wondering whether the city you're in is still the city you need, I want to say something clearly. Pay attention to that feeling. Don't dismiss it as ungratefulness or weakness or even impracticality. Sit with it. Ask yourself honestly what it's telling you. Sometimes the feeling will pass. Sometimes it's just a difficult season and the city is still right for you. But other times, and I think you'll know the difference if you're honest with yourself, it's a signal. It's your life asking for something new. And when that's the case, change is not failure. Change is the whole point. I don't regret a single day we spent in Palermo, not one. Even the hard days, and I guess especially even the hard days, were giving us something we needed. But I'm also glad we left when we did, because we left while we still loved it. And that means the love is still intact. The memories are still good. The city still holds a piece of us that we're proud of. You have to know when the time is right to go. Not so that you can leave a place behind, but so that you can keep it with you, whole and beautiful, exactly as it deserves to be. Italy will give you many homes over the course of your life here, and I really want to say to you, be open to them all.